Hello, in this video I'm going to discuss some of the changes coming up in the patch 5.1 test server, and let's start at the beginning. When you first join World of Warships now, you'll have a training mission to complete before you can really get into the game. I'm assuming this will be much like the training missions in World of Warplanes and World of Tanks. I say I'm assuming because I haven't actually been able to play it because it's not on the test server at the moment. There are also two new ranks in your service record. At rank 2 now, you'll be able to unlock the tech tree and new modules for your ships. The previous rank 2 has been bumped up one level to rank 3, as is, rank 3 is going to rank 4, rank 4 is going to rank 5, and so on. There's also a new rank 10, and when you get to rank 10 you unlock missions, challenges and events. Well, actually I assume you just unlock missions and challenges. I think events probably goes on the whole time. And the old rank 10's now rank 11, which is the ranked battles. Missions, challenges and events are worth mentioning. Events are just the random events, the specials and things that Wargaming puts on, such as the ×2 experience weekends and sale on such and such, whatever. Missions and challenges are both new. Well, we've had daily missions for a long time, which is those little missions that pop up where it's, sink 3 enemy ships, get 4 torpedoes on target in a single game, and you get credits and experience for those. Now you'll be able to replace a daily mission if you don't want to complete it. Say you don't have any ships with torpedoes, so you're never going to be able to do it. Missions are similar, except they've got a time limit, so you can't just take however long you want to it. They're probably a bit harder. So the 3 missions I've got are destroy 10 enemy ships in a ship of tier 6 or higher, cause 100,000 hit points of damage to ships in a random battle. I don't actually think that's in a random battle, I think it's in random battles. But for that one I have to be in a destroyer of tier 4 or higher, but it has to be destroyer. And there is also a time limit on that one. And my third one, well, it says it's a 3-part mission. Part 1 is to set fire to 10 enemy ships while I'm in a ship of tier 5 or higher. I didn't actually manage to finish part 1 of that mission, so I can't see what part 2 or part 3 is. And each of these missions they actually give you pretty significant rewards in terms of flags, main battery, gun upgrade, and, well, for the 3-tier one I just get tons of flags and engine boosts and just consumables. Challenges are different in that, well, missions you complete once and you get all the rewards. In challenges you get lesser rewards, but you can actually complete the challenge multiple times. In fact, it says an unlimited number of times, so I've got a whole bunch of them. Hopefully you'll see a screenshot of them on the screen at the same time. I've completed American Fleet Test and Japanese Fleet Test a couple of times. They were both pretty easy, and they just give you a 1.2 times experience to your ship's experience in that battle. There have been a number of changes to individual ships in the game. Let's start with the aircraft carriers. Torpedoes will now have less chance of flooding per hit, but high tier ships no longer get a buff against flooding damage, which kind of balances out. It means that torpedoes will be less effective at low tiers, but probably about the same at high tiers. The Japanese will get a significantly different torpedo attack run. It's denser, but you have a much longer approach and you have slower torpedoes. So all in all, that's probably bad for Japanese torpedo bombers. If you are using your manual attack in Japanese dive bombers, you will actually find them greatly superior. They've got a very small circle that the bomb will land in, which just gives you very concentrated fire on the enemy. I didn't use that very effectively because I couldn't really aim it, but if you're good at aiming it, that'll be very good for you. The big change for United States aircraft carriers is that the dive bombers just seem... Apparently they've got a new thing where the cruisers' defensive fire ability just won't affect dive bombers as much as they had previously. I think that's actually very significant. Like, I had a hard time spotting any difference at all from cruisers using the defensive fire ability at me. I did one game in Independence where I was basically just trying to dive bomb cruisers the whole time, and I think only once did I see a slight increase in the size of my dive bomber's attack circle. So that's actually a very powerful buff to the US dive bombers. US ships, the rest of them also get a few changes. The destroyers, the high tier ones, have been significantly improved. The torpedoes from Nicholas up get a range increase. From the Mahan at tier 7, United States destroyers will be able to perform stealth attacks. The Benson, the Sims and the Fletcher also get a rate of fire increase on their main caliber guns, which will also be very useful. Also, a few American destroyers can now, where they had the option previously of having one less main caliber gun and a bunch more anti-aircraft guns, generally now they will get to keep their main caliber gun to get that extra anti-aircraft ability. US cruisers have also got significantly enhanced in terms of their anti-aircraft ability. By default, they now get 4 fighter planes and 3 of the defensive fire abilities, while every other cruiser in the game will get 3 planes and 2 defensive fires by default. High tier American cruisers, the New Orleans up, have also had a decrease in the likelihood of their armor-piercing shells bouncing, and that also applies to the Top Gun on the Pensacola. While a couple of the higher tier cruisers have also had their armor slightly thickened. So American cruisers, they should start performing slightly better in terms of the armor-piercing fight with enemy cruisers, but they've also had significantly enhanced anti-aircraft abilities. Well, actually it's partly also that other cruisers have had a bit of a nerf to their anti-aircraft capabilities, but it amounts to the same thing. There weren't very many changes to the Japanese, other than the ones about the carriers we've discussed earlier. The Kuma and the Zhao now only get 2 planes, as opposed to the 3 that others will get by default. Otago's been pretty significantly buffed with a decreased rudder shift time, and they also have access to the repair party consumable, which should make them last a lot longer in combat. Not a lot of changes to the Russians or Germans. The Russian tier 3 and 4 destroyers both get increases to their top speeds. Tursky is still the slowest Russian destroyer in the game, but now it can go 34 knots, which actually isn't very slow at all. For Germany, the Hermelin, the tier 1 cruiser, gets slightly more armour, which does help it slightly, at least in the test server. Dresden and Kolberg get better armor-piercing penetration, which actually does seem to help them a lot if you are like me and tend to just spam armor-piercing at everything. There are lots of new maps. There's Land of Fire, which hopefully you'll be seeing on screen now. Honestly, other than the way this map looks, I didn't really see anything special about it. It's just kind of a scattering of islands around, well, kind of a very tight scattering of islands in the east and a slightly more open space scattering in the west, but it just seems like a pretty open map with lots of small islands to hide behind, but it looks pretty alright. There's also Northern Lights, which I did play on, but I didn't actually get any footage of, which is just a reskin of North, so it's at night, and there's an aurora behind you. Well, if you're in the south, if you spawn in the south, there's an aurora behind you and the dawn in front of you. So it's a pretty good looking map, but not really new since it's just North again. There's also a new map called Trap, which I never actually managed to play on because it just never came up in the rotation, so I can't really comment on it. There's also been lots of small changes to maps. Particularly Hotspot's been changed a lot, and Two Brothers. It's just generally changes where islands are placed on the map. On those two, at least, they've kind of changed the map so there's less areas of open sea, but also less areas where there are very tight, narrow channels between islands. So it's just a bit more. You know, there are islands everywhere, but you've got some space to manoeuvre in. Something I should mention is that when you touch the map border now, there's actually a pretty massive reduction to engine power. I believe it's a 75% reduction to engine power. But note that's a reduction to engine power, not speed, so that if you are in a ship that accelerates quickly, such as a destroyer, it's not actually going to affect you that much, since it'll slow you down slightly because you probably won't be able to accelerate, but yeah, it's just for things like in battleships you'll notice it immensely, since you accelerate very slowly anyway and you need all your engine power, and losing a lot of it means you will start slowing down rapidly. There's also a new battle mode called Zone. I haven't played it, so I can't comment on it. Again, it just never came up in the rotation. There's been a fair few changes to the captain's skills. Most of them are actually pretty minor. They're just changing the degree to which a skill works. But there are kind of two changes that I think will be significant. The first is to, well, I suppose really the first two is to basic firing training and advanced firing training in the secondary armament line. Basic firing training is the one that gives you a 10% increase to the rate of fire of small caliber guns, while advanced firing training gives you a 20% increase to the firing range of small caliber guns. On the test server at the moment, those changes apply to all anti-aircraft and secondary guns, but they only apply to main armaments below 139mm, which is actually counter to what the tooltip says. Apparently this was actually an accident in the test server. Someone typed in 139 where it was supposed to say 155, but the developers decided to test it anyway and see what they think about it. It actually is a pretty significant change to especially light cruisers, the Americans with their 155mm guns and the Japanese with 140mm guns. I think the Germans also have 155mm guns. Basically it just cuts their rate of fire back fairly significantly, and if you've got the range boost it cuts their range back. But for most of those ships it's actually not that big a deal. They can work just fine with a slightly slower rate of fire and, you know, without the increased range. Probably the one exception is the Albany, the Tier 2 gift cruiser, which really needs that range increase, because otherwise it's stuck at, what is it, 6.3 kilometers is maximum range? Which is a bit weak. So, I know, I'm not sure if I actually think that's a good idea to leave it at 139 or increase it, or put it back up to 155. The Tier 3 aircraft skill dogfighting expert has also been changed pretty significantly. Previously, well, on the live server, it's aircraft of lower speed get a boost in their combat performance when fighting aircraft of higher speed. That's actually been changed now so that aircraft of lower tier fighters of a lower tier get a bonus when attacking aircraft of a higher tier. And also the greater the tier difference, the greater the increase in fighting power. I'd actually specifically say there are 10% increase to combat performance of fighters for each tier of difference between them. So it's not going to be enough to make your low tier fighters win against enemy fighters, but it will make them last longer in combat, which gives you more opportunity to, you know, set other forces in play that might be able to help you win. Yes, there have been a few other changes, just mostly in the degree to which skills work or don't work or whatever. There's also been changes to the UI. The most notable one is that there are changes to the carousel and the way it works now. There are now a bunch of filters that you can use to filter through your ships. And there's also the compact carousel view, which basically doubles the amount of ships you can fit on the bottom of your screen at one time, although you do lose the pictures of them. Yeah, I think those are the main changes coming out in patch 5.1, at least in the current iteration of the test server. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't really think there's anything too significant in here, other than the changes to the aircraft carriers, which probably not really significant. It's just something we're going to have to get used to and relearn how to play them a bit. And the new maps will be interesting as well, but nothing really game-changing in this one. But I suppose I'm still looking forward to it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video or found it informative, and I'll see you all next time.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.